What's up, everybody? Welcome to the live stream. Woo! Oh my goodness. Here we are. Whew. Here we are. Oh, even that song couldn't get me hyped today. Even that song couldn't. I'm not going to tell you what time I woke up because some of you will be like, that's too early. And some of you will be like, I get up that early every day. I'm a construction worker or something along those lines. But it was earlier than I wished I would have. And now I'm ready for bed, but not before we get some Q&A done. I wouldn't miss a live stream for my own comfort. No. This is a badass shirt. I would like to say thank you to Rect for sending. I actually got a giant box of shirts in the mail. Rect, let me just throw it up here. Rect.co. They I don't know why they decided to do this. Well, probably because they want me to wear their shirts on stream and so forth. And also, I think we talked about this Lipo Death shirt. That's it. We talked about this Lipo Death shirt that I got at Rampage like 2 years ago. And they were like, oh, I designed that shirt. That's my design. They're very proud of their design. They should be. It's a beautiful design. And then they probably were like, I know, I'm going to send Bardwell some more shirts since he likes that one. And thank you. I appreciate that. They're there. That's really gorgeous, you know? So a little shout out there. To Rect, and thanks you for sending me some shirts to wear. It's a little embarrassing because now I have there were like 7 or 8 shirts in there, and I'm like, okay. I don't want to feel like I'm like sponsored by Rect, like I'm just a NASCAR car driving around with my sponsor's logo on my back. Like if I have like 2 of your shirts, I'll be like, yeah, it's cool. I got a Rect shirt. I got this shirt. I got that shirt. But if I have like 8 of your shirts, it starts to feel, so I don't know. I'll probably still wear them though. I'm a sucker for free t-shirts. So, with that out of the way, we are going to do Q&A. Here's how it's going to work. You guys are going to ask questions in the chat. I'm going to answer the questions. These people over here on the right side of the screen are my patrons. And they are going to ask questions, and I'll pay slightly more attention to them because they pay me money. Hey, it's how the world works, man. And speaking of which, if you would like me to pay an extra special amount of attention to your question, hit the $ down here at the bottom and leave a super chat. And I will read the super chats. I will start reading the super chats usually about 25 after, maybe on the half hour, maybe 20 after if I'm feeling sporty. And we'll just start getting those. But I always like to start the stream off by answering just some regular old questions from the chat, just so it doesn't look like I'm all about the money. I don't get me wrong. Like I like money. I like to pay rent. I like to eat food and buy quadcopter parts. Don't have to buy t-shirts, so that's nice. But t-shirts don't pay the bills. We'll be a man of the people for the first half hour. I'll be the man of the super chats for the second half hour. Here we go. Oh, Slat FPV, it's good to see you. Good to see you, Slat FPV. Haven't seen you around in a while. Slat has been working? You been working, man? You been doing cinematic shit? I haven't seen as much. I was like seeing your freestyle all over the place for a while. And you kind of disappeared, or at least off my radar. And then I started seeing like Instagram reels of you doing cinematic shit. So good on you, man. Yeah. Okay. We'll start with this question from Pulex. Puletz? It looks like Polish. What's a good 8S charger? There aren't very many of them, to be honest with you. The one that I settled on when I was looking for an 8S charger was the ISDT Air 8. Because it's $60, and that's a good price. ISDT Air 8 8S charger. There's a Toolkit RC that does it But I tend to prefer ISDT or Hoda or HobbyMate over Toolkit RC most of the time. I think they're a little better made, but you go to Toolkit RC as well. But that's the one I would recommend to you. Bing, bang, bong, just like that. One question up, one question down. JTP wants to know, is there any way to get AV in or analog module on the Fat Shark Dominator goggles? Since the price drop, they look really good. No, there isn't. There just isn't. There isn't. There's no way. Like, not even like a hacky secret way that I'm aware of. Just isn't. So there you go. So there you go. Pulik. But how do you say the CZ, Pulik? Pulets? How do you say CZ in Polish? Czech. Oh, Czech. It's Czech. All right, well, how do you say it? I guess it's Pulech. If it's Czech, CZECK, CZECH, does that make... Pulik is tadpole in Czech. CZ. Oh, CZ. Oh, it's a play on words. CZ is Czech domain, CZ, and Pulik is tadpole. So it's the Czechoslovakian tadpole. Got it. ML asks, I'm new to building drones. If I wanted to switch my battery connector to a different one, could I just unsolder the old one and put the new one on in its place? You can. Yes, you can. But wait. Why are you switching battery connectors? Because maybe there's a good reason to do that. Like you already have a battery and it's got a certain connector on it, like a Dean's connector, and you want to swap it over to an XT60 or something. I'm being told that Czechoslovakia has not been around for 21 years. Sorry about that. Czech Republic? I have to ask my son. My son knows a lot about European history through the from about the 1900s to modern day. It's actually if my son were here, he would be rolling his eyes so hard. Dad, Czechoslovakia hasn't existed for 21 years. They became the Czech Republic and Slovakia in such and such and such a year when the such and such empire. And I'd be like, I'm so proud of him. I don't know where he learned that stuff. But anyway, no. Sorry for my ignorance of your rich and meaningful history. The thing is, you should probably not try to be innovative with the type of battery connector you're using. Like if you build a drone and all the batteries that are correct for that drone come with an XT90, and you're like, yeah, I think I'm going to use an XT60. Well, there's probably a reason those batteries come with an XT90. Maybe they need that larger connector. Likewise, if you build a drone and all the batteries come with an XT30, and you're like, I think I'll put an XT60 on them. Well, that's okay. The only penalty for going to a larger connector is increased weight and size. But why didn't you just put an XT30 on your drone? So what I would say is, think about what connector your drone is going to be used with most of the time and put that connector on your drone. Now, let's imagine a scenario where you have a bunch of XT60 batteries. There's an XT60 on your drone, and you have one battery from, a few years ago that for some reason has a Dean's connector on it. And you're like, I think I'll put an XT60 on it so I can use it with my drone. Okay. I mean, make sure that it has a high enough C rating and stuff, but you could do that. But sometimes people get into the hobby and they're they come from the RC car world and they're used to a Dean's connector or whatever. And they're like, oh, I'm going to put a Dean's connector on my drone. And they don't realize that everybody uses XT60 on drones. And all the batteries you're going to buy for use with your drone are going to come with XT60s, and you're kind of not really doing yourself a favor. Okay. Here's a question from Luis Usma. Have you ever gotten your Part 107 license? You're damn right. I'd be in big trouble if I didn't have a 107. FAA would be knocking my door down. What are some jobs that you have done? I am doing it right now. Every time you see me fly a drone on my channel, that's a Part 107 job. That's why I have a 107. Because I make money off my YouTube channel, then if I fly and put the footage on my YouTube channel, then that needs to have been done as a 107 flight. That's not exactly correct theoretically. Theoretically, if I were to do a purely recreational flight with no intent of ever posting it and then later change my mind and post it on my channel, theoretically that would not need a 107. However, the chances of me actually convincing anyone that actually happened are zero, and I wouldn't tempt fate that way. King FPV uses the phrase "in furtherance of a business," and I've repeated that phrase, and the reason I repeat that phrase, Part 107 is needed in furtherance of a business, because people are like, well, I didn't get paid for this job. Like, I did a free fly-through of my brother's car dealership. I didn't get paid, but that flight was still a 107 flight because it was in furtherance of a business. Whether you got paid or not doesn't matter. But here's the interesting thing. The actual wording is that purely recreational flights don't need a 107. And the real wording is that it's anything that is not purely recreational. Now, you could infer that something in furtherance of a business is not purely recreational, but the actual distinction is even more sort of pushed back than in furtherance of a business. If you did something that wasn't in furtherance of a business, but still wasn't purely recreational, it would theoretically need a 107, although I'm not really sure what that would be. So, yeah, I have a 107. Am I going to be doing any more iNav content? Probably. But I don't have a specific plan to do it at this exact minute. I just have other stuff on my plate. Right now, I'm happy to tell you, in case you're wondering, this little sucker here, this is the Multi-GP Pro spec. They're 7-inch spec racings, and I am actually building one. This is not, I didn't build this one. Multi-GP sent me this one. They were like, well, I'll tell you what, do you want to do a build video for a Pro spec? And I was like, yeah, fucking A. And they were like, well, what's that going to cost? And I was like, it's not going to cost you anything. Like, I'm not saying, I won't say that I would never take money in exchange for a video. Like, I don't want to rule anything out. Wealthy billionaires, get in touch. But I was like, I'm not going to charge Multi-GP money to do a build video because I think there's value for both of us. I said, send me the parts for the build. I'll do the build. I'll keep the drone. We'll call it even. Now, someone in the comments is saying, well, that's the same as if you got money because that's compensation. You're so dishonest. It's like, okay, we all get it. I know that. I'm not trying to mislead anybody. But I thought, yeah, that sounds like a fair deal, right? Sounds like a fair deal to me. And they were like, well, we'll send you a built one. From this actually was one of the drones that was built for the Sharjah race. And they said, like, you could keep it. And I was like, you know what? Let's give it away. So I'm actually, when this video comes out, I'm going to be doing a giveaway. I will be giving away this drone that was built for the Sharjah race. And I'll be doing a build of my own. So that'll be exciting. Yeah. So more iNav content? Probably. Not this exact minute, though. Mukerani Kebab. I am sorry about how I pronounced your name. How do I overcome fear of building drones? I'm mid-build. I'm scared I'll destroy something. Man, I'll tell you what. It sucks how expensive everything is, that then you have to be afraid that you're going to break something. I'm going to guess that you don't have unlimited money, right? I'm going to guess you don't have unlimited money. Because, like, if you are fortunate enough, like, there comes a point, like, where you reach a point in life, some people do, where you look around and you go, I don't have to stress about spending $1. I don't have to stress about spending $5. I don't have to stress about spending $10. For every person and every income level, there's a threshold of money where you don't really have to think about whether you could just spend $5 whenever you want as much as you want, and you'll probably be fine, or whatever that number is for you. Well, for some people out there, that number is $100. And for those people, you don't need to stress about building, because if you destroy something, you'll just buy more. So if you happen to be that person, then that's the answer. Just get over it. You're rich. F you. For those of us who are not in that position, we got to be really careful. The thing is, as long as you're very careful to get your wiring correct and get your soldering correct, the chances of you like blowing something up are relatively small. So be very careful. Learn, practice soldering on a solder board. Get good at soldering. Get competent at soldering before you start soldering on your expensive electronics. Make sure that you wire up the battery voltage correctly. Make sure you wire up ground. The only thing that'll fry something is if you put battery voltage where it's not supposed to go. That's mostly true. So pay a special attention that there's no short circuits, that the battery voltage wire goes where it needs to go. And then, eventually you're going to destroy something, and that's just part of life, and you'll learn from that mistake, and you'll get on with it. Yeah. I guess that's what I would say. We got a question here from Derek B, who says, on my OSD, I have Crossfire set to show 2 100 as LQ, then it goes to 1 100. How do I know when I should turn around? Derek, the 1 and the 2 at the beginning of the LQ are the RF mode, is the technical term for it. It's the packet rate. So 1 is 50 hertz, 2 is 150 hertz. And what you see with Crossfire is that when you're very close to yourself, within maybe a couple hundred meters, it's at 2, which is 150 hertz. That's the lower latency mode. But as soon as you fly away, it drops to 1 because that's the lower latency, higher penetration mode. And then it stays at 1 until you come home. So don't worry about the changing from 1 to 2. There's nothing weird about or unusual about that. If you're a racer, you could lock it to RF mode 2, 150 hertz. That's an option you can set inside I think it's in the receiver options. You can actually lock it to 150 hertz, and then you keep that low latency mode for racing, but it'll be much shorter range. How do you know when you should turn around? That second number is the LQ. When the LQ is above 90, then you don't even need to think about it. When the LQ is between 80 and 90, then you're fine, but you should think about it. And when the LQ drops below 80 is when I start to think maybe I should be careful and turn around. Now, if you actually fly until you failsafe, sometimes the LQ will get as low as like 40 before you drop out of the sky. But the point is that once it's below about 80, you're at risk of it. The other thing is it often will go slow, gone. So sometimes if it's below 80, you're at risk of it just dropping off a cliff and disappearing altogether. That's what I would say. If you know that you have GPS return to home and you feel confident that you're willing to risk fail-safing the quad, you can fly with it below 80, and maybe you could go a lot further. But my rule of thumb is that when it's below 80, I start thinking about turning around, or I'm aware that I could fail safe at any moment. Here's a question from Katizo, who asks, I just burned the Schottky diode on my flight controller. I have no 5-volt conversion. Should I attempt to fix it or get a new flight controller or the whole stack? Well, there's no reason to get a new ESC if you burned the flight controller. Whether you should attempt to fix it is completely up to you. It just depends on how good you are at surface mount soldering and stuff. There are people out there for whom that repair would be an easy 15 minutes, and there are people out there like me for whom there is zero chance of them successfully doing the repair. So if you're going to throw the flight controller out anyway, you might as well try to fix it. And if you fail, all you've lost is time. But if you succeed, then you've gained experience and a new flight controller. So yeah, that's it. It's worth it.
Hey, just real quick.
Yeah.
On on the YouTube thing, make sure you don't have it on top chat. You have it on live chat.
Oh, where do I need it? Oh, I have it on top chat. Where do you want it? Live chat. Oh, are you missing questions? Oh.
Yes.
Got it. Let's see here. We'll take a couple more questions, then we'll go to the super chats. How easy is it to explode a lipo during a crash? And should I be worried about burning a forest down by accident? Yes, you should. You absolutely should. Now, I'm not saying you should let it consume your soul, but here's the thing. The chances of a lipo lighting on a fire in a crash are low. I've seen a lot of crashes that didn't result in a lipo fire, but I'll tell you what. I've never seen a lipo light on fire during flight when the guy didn't crash. You see what I mean? And because there's a likelihood that you're going to crash, there's a likelihood that you're going to pop your lipo off. And I know of at least one case where a person was flying in a dry, brushy area. They crashed, the lipo lit on fire, and it started a serious fire that burned a few acres before it was put out. I would say that if you're in a place where there's a burn ban because there's a risk of wildfires, I'm not sure I would go fly. That may be, people are going to be like, Bardwell's a coward. Oh, he's over cautious. If I crashed and started a fucking wildfire that burned down people's houses and stuff, that, I couldn't live with that. I'm not sure I would fly. I would say that if you're flying somewhere where it's green and lush, the chances of you starting a fire are basically zero. If you're flying somewhere where it's dry and there's a risk of fire, then you should think very, very carefully, number one, about whether you should fly at all. Number two, I would fly extremely conservatively so that I wasn't as likely to crash and pop off the battery. And number three, I would be prepared to try to put out a fire if it were to happen. I would have a fire extinguisher or something along those lines. That's what I would say. The chances of it happening, extremely low, but not zero. And if it happens, it could be a huge disaster, depending on the environmental conditions. All right, let's get some super chats. We're going to answer super chats until the super chats run out. There are currently only 2 super chats. So if you want to get your question answered promptly, now is a good time to leave a super chat. Michael Rochka says, I tried to update my MT12 and when I hit flash, I get an error message. Failed to execute open on USB device, access denied. How do I do it? Is it in DFU mode? It makes me think it's not in DFU mode. To put it in DFU mode, you plug it in. You plug in the USB with the power off, and then it can flash. So for example, let me see if I can demonstrate this for you. All right. So here is my MT12. Here's the USB port right here. Not the one on the back for charging. That one doesn't count. I'm going to plug it in. And when I plug it in, you should hear a sound. Did you hear that sound? You see that it's powered down? That sound was the DFU mode kicking in. Then we go to Edge TX Buddy. Select radio model, MT12. Okay. Good. Now, flash via USB. And what we have to do is we have to connect radio. So I'm going to hit Add New Device. And I should see right here, STM32 bootloader. If you don't see STM32 bootloader here, you have a problem. Now, I'm not actually going to flash this right now. I don't actually want to flash my radio right this minute. But that's how you would do it. Now, the question is, where in that process is it not working for you? Okay. So you have STM32 bootloader, is that right? Is there more than one STM32 bootloader? That can be an issue. If STM32 bootloader isn't working, the next thing I would do is I would go and download Impulse RC Driver Fixer. Okay? Impulse RC Driver Fixer. It's right here. Impulse RC Driver Fixer. Okay? And hold on. RC Utilities. When you run that, so hang on. So we're going to run that app. There we go. And then I'm going to plug in with power off. There we go. And it'll do this. Okay? That will potentially fix your USB driver and allow it to work. That would be the next thing I would do. All right. If that doesn't work, unplug everything from your computer except your keyboard and mouse. USB. Unplug USB and try that. Bergeron wants suggestions for conformal coating. MG Chemicals is the one that I always use. MG Chemicals silicon. You can't see. Sorry. MG Chemicals silicon conformal coating. That's the one I always use. I don't know. 422C? 422B? No, you don't. I don't think you want an acrylicone silicone blend. I think I want silicone. Acrylic is less flexible. Or maybe they're all acrylic blend. I don't know. This says silicone conformal coating. 422C. I don't know. Maybe they all are. People use acrylic coating, and I don't think that's it. I think it chips off more easily. Yeah. All right. What about the Flywoo spray? Flywoo has a waterproofing spray. The Flywoo waterproof spray is not. It's a hydrophobic spray. I've seen this kind of thing before. It's not really a coating like silicone conformal coating. Like anything that you can spray onto connectors, think about it. Silicone conformal coating, if you get it on a connector, the connector's ruined because it coats the connector and then electricity can't get through. Well, that's the whole point, right? This stuff is a different kind of waterproofing that you can spray anywhere, and it's allowed to get on connectors and it doesn't hurt them. Well, do you know why? Because when you plug the connector in, it scrapes away the microscopic coating and the connector works. Well, do you see a problem with this? If the coating can be scraped away, the coating is micrometers thick. I don't know how thick it is. It's a tiny, tiny molecular level thin coating that repels water. And as soon as you plug that connector in, it scrapes it away and the connector works. Yay, how convenient. Do you see a problem with this? Do you think anything else might scrape that away? So my theory is that coatings like this, like the Flywoo coating, that they'll wear off quicker. And you'll need to reapply them regularly if you want to maintain the waterproofing. That's my theory. And notice they say, don't let your circuit board be immersed in water for a long time when powered on. conformal coating, you can just leave it plugged in forever. It's literally, the water's just not touching it. So I think this stuff is also less effective at waterproofing than silicone conformal coating. And not to say that there isn't a place for it, just that you need to understand the limitations. Has anybody done, I'm sure they must have done a demo where you put this shit just in the water, right? Just spritz it on, sure. Wait to dry. So, yeah, you see he's pouring the water on it, right? But he's not immersing it in water, right? With conformal coating, you can literally immerse it in water and it's fine. But you can't put conformal coating on a camera. It'll ruin the sensor. So there's places for everything. There's pros and cons. But you need to understand the limitations. Madstech did the water immersion test. He fully dunked it. I still think it won't. I still think it'll wear off faster and is not as effective, just because that's how that kind of spray usually works. Water resistant versus waterproof. Oh, he powered off when he dunked it. Oh, well, there you go. Point made. Point made. All right. I just got my first drone. Thank you for a $10 super chat. Rainier. Just got my first drone, a Vision 40. Why does it start bouncing when it touches the ground? Because that's how real drones are. When you tap the ground during flight, they bounce back. You're supposed to disarm. You're not supposed to thunk and land. It's not an airplane. It's not a helicopter. The way you land it is you get close to the ground and you just disarm and it goes. That's how you land it. If you get real good on the throttle, you can land it. You can actually land it. But you have to disarm as soon as you touch down. You don't touch down with it armed. If you really want to do stuff like that, you turn off air mode, and then it doesn't bounce, but then it also flies worse. So recommendation is to leave Betaflight on. Leave air mode on. Are there beginner-friendly rates? Yeah, you can go into the Betaflight rate profile, PID tuning tab, rate profile, and turn the rates down. What I suggest you do, pardon my USB plug-in noise. What I suggest you do is you go to the PID tuning tab, you go to the rate profile settings, and what you do is reduce the max rate. Like 500 or 400 is a good max rate. And that will make it easier to fly.
I just also want to mention, he's talking about compared to liftoff micro. Mm-hmm. That actually has rates in it. So you should be able to pull the same rates. It won't be quite the same because it's micro, but you have rates you can pull off and then match exactly. So if you're feeling like it's more twitchy compared to that, it's just because you're flying a real drone. And specifically, if you're talking, because you mentioned bouncing when touching the ground, if you're talking about the throttle, that's going to be twitchy in real life. It is very sensitive, and you kind of got to learn. You can add a throttle curve, but a lot of people would suggest not doing that and kind of just learning how it works.
Agree. Yeah. Thank you, Blunty. Good points. Vlake, thank you for 100 Mexican pesos. My drone, Vlake? My drone is arming, but the goggles too don't detect the arming or display anything from the OSD. What should I do? You have to identify the UART number that the O3 is plugged into. So I wish you had told me what flight controller you were using. Let's keep an eye on the chat and see if he can tell us the flight controller he's using. Okay, tell you what, Blunty, I'm going to pause this super chat and give him like 3 minutes to catch up with the chat and mention what flight controller he's using, and then we'll come back to this one. We're going to go to the next one. Oh, got it. Babyhawk 03. Okay, that should just work out of the box, man. That should have been... Did you mess with it? Did you mess with the flight controller? Did it work out of the box and you change things and now it doesn't work?
It's already changed MSP, so I'm guessing that's a yes.
He updated the ESC. Okay, so it was working, and you got a little sporty with it. Okay. What we got to do is we got to find the flight controller that's in this drone. Baby Hawk 03. It doesn't say. Isn't that great? Isn't that so great? Where's the specs? Specs? Nothing? Oh, related products. Nope. Don't know why you would want to, like, buy... Hey, Emacs, I want to buy a spare part for my Baby Hawk 03. Well, here I am on the product page. I guess I'm going to go look for where I can find spare parts. Nope! Nope, screw you! We don't have links to that stuff. Related products. Oh, where's the spare motors and spare flight controllers? Nope. Way to go.
Check the Discord.
What did the Discord say? The Discord just found the flight controller. Yeah, okay. Okay, fine. I was just about to search for it, and I would have found it. Just saying. Flight controller ESC board. Okay, here we go. Where? So there's no plug for the air unit. It seems obvious that UART2 is used for the receiver because it's near the S-bus connector or the S-bus pad. So that's going to be UART2. And there's only one other UART, so it's UART1. So the VTX must be on UART1. Okay? So what I would have you do is go into Betaflight, go to the Presets tab, find the 03 preset, OSD for FPV, WTF, DJI-03, Avatar HD. Find the 03 preset, select Use DisplayPort and MSP on UART1, hit Pick, and then hit Save and Reboot. Save and Reboot. And that should get your OSD working. Yes, sir. I've been getting into 3D printed planes and iNav, and one of the great features of iNav is auto-tune. Why hasn't Betaflight introduced such a feature? Because it doesn't work great. Betaflight used to have auto-tune feature, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. The Betaflight had an auto-tune feature, and it didn't work good. What Betaflight has done with auto-tuning is make the defaults better. So Betaflight's approach, and I've seen this approach play out. This is not the first time this question's been asked, and I've given the same answer over the years. But the difference is that I've been in this game long enough that I remember when Betaflight's default PIDs and the default PID controller. I remember, kids, gather around the fire. I remember when Betaflight had 3 different PID controllers. And you could pick which one you wanted to try to use. And there were separate instructions for tuning each different PID controller. Well, what are the differences between them? Like, a PID controller just is a PID controller. Ha ha ha. No. And there were big debates over which one was the best one. God, can anyone in the chat, gold star to anyone in the chat who remembers the names of the 3 different Betaflight PID controllers from way back in the day? And then I will have such nostalgia when I read them, but I can't remember them. And sorry, I lost my train of thought because I was trying to read the chat. So Betaflight flew like shit. I mean, it flew better than a lot of other things, but compared to today, it flew like shit and you had to PID tune the crap out of it. And people tried auto-tune, and the problem is auto-tune just didn't work very well. It didn't produce great results. And what the Betaflight devs did was focus on making the PID controller better. So they introduced all these things. I remember when they introduced a low-pass filter on the D term. That was one of Boris B's things. And they just kept making the defaults better and better and better. So now, like, the default Betaflight PIDs are really very good, and a wide variety of quadcopters fly pretty good on them. At which point, how are you going to auto-tune? Like, it's just, like, there is some auto-PID tuning, like the dynamic filters. That's one of the things you used to have to PID tune. Now we have dynamic filters that just adjust in real time while you fly. That's automatic PID tuning. Okay? The aircraft, when iNav does an automatic PID tune, it's doing it generally on a much larger and much less responsive aircraft. It is not a high-power, agile, twitchy, lightweight racing drone. It's like a big camera drone, or like a 7-inch or a 10-inch. And yes, I know iNav also flies on smaller. I'm not saying that it doesn't, but I'm saying that the reason iNav's auto PID tune works as well as it seems to do is that the PID tunes it produces don't need to be very aggressive. And I would speculate, and I do acknowledge this is speculation, so take it as that, but I would speculate that if you were to compare an iNav bird with an auto PID tune on like a high-powered 5-inch drone or something, compared to Betaflight's defaults would be way better. That's what I would say. Blunty, I remember Lux. I don't remember MW23. Is that it? Wow. I remember Lux. And I think it was Betaflight 3.2. If I remember right, it was 3.2 where the devs were like, we're getting rid of the PID controllers. There's only going to be one PID controller from now on. And I was like, ooh.
It looks like
really?
3.0.
3.0? Fair enough.
About it, yeah.
Yeah, so like here they're talking
it might be random chance, but they mentioned 3 multi-beat PID controllers here, so it seemed like the right thing.
That sounds right. Rewrite and Lux are using linear TPA implementation. See, there were all these debates on like, how does TPA work? How should it work? How should a PID controller, like, what's the best way to do it? It's a new PID controller. Lux was a new floating point-based PID controller that instead of integers, it uses floats. It compensates for variations in loop time. This was back before the loop time was locked to the gyro rate, and they were synchronized. Another one of the things that Boris B, I think it was Boris B, did with Betaflight was lock the gyro rate and synchronize it to the PID loop rate, so that the PID loop rate was always ending before or in sync with the gyro rate. So there was always fresh data from the PID control from the gyro going into the PID controller. They were unlocked. Variations in loop time.
Even back when you could pick like 4.0 and all, like even when you could pick the gyro and the PID control, it was still like using the native gyro and like locking to the loop time, I think. Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah.
I'm not sure. I believe you. It was a long time ago. Oh, on PID controller MW23, you can set the feel around center stick for small control movements. Baseline stick sensitivity, blah, 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 blah. So the rates were different. Everything was different. Yaw rate is a stick sensitivity multiplier as explained above. Anyway, now we just have one PID controller, and it's pretty damn good, and that's why Betaflight doesn't have autotune. In short, Betaflight doesn't have autotune because, number one, the default PIDs are very good, and number two, autotuning is very difficult to do well and often produces bad results and doesn't reliably produce good results, especially on high-powered performance aircraft. All right. My dad bought a Nevada 2, and I'm getting him into FPV for the first time ever. What can I use to safely fly with him to keep up with his flight time? Another Avata 2. The Avata 2 has 15, 20 minutes of flight time. Like, if you're trying to fly an FPV drone for 15 or 20 minutes, you could do it on a very light 4-inch, with a 18650 battery. Most FPV drones are not designed for that kind of flight time. They're designed more for speed and power. But why would you just get another Avata 2? There you go. Good to go. Is the Darwin FPV Baby Ape 2 any good? Asks Gross J83. It's good for the price. It's objectively not like objectively it's cheap, but at the price, at a low enough price, even something cheap starts to be worth it. You know what I mean? So it's good for the price. But you're going to see people out there who wanted something that wasn't cheap, and they hate the Baby Ape because they're like, it's cheap. Yeah, well, you didn't pay very much for it either. If you want something better than the Baby Ape, you can pay more. I think it's worth the price they ask, but not everybody is going to be happy with how quickly it breaks, and you got to put a new motor on it or something. New motors aren't that expensive. Yeah. All right. That's the super chats for now. And we're going to go back to the regular chats. Let's see. Have you ever tuned a quad that after pushing the sliders all the way to the extreme, you still couldn't get it to oscillate? Yeah. Yet another sign of how gosh dang good Betaflight's PID controller is. I don't know what it means, but I absolutely have seen cases where you just keep raising the P gain and raising the P gain, and somehow it still doesn't oscillate and stays in control. Yeah. Like, what does that mean? I mean, probably that's not a good PID tune. Like, you're working with the Brian White PID tuning method using PID Toolbox, so you're probably looking at the step response. And in the step response graph, you're probably seeing some change in the oscillation. But it may not be just oscillating visibly in real life. I failed to replace the Schottky diode. Well, that didn't take long. What FC do you recommend for a 2 to 6S 20x20? I'm going to take you to my website, fpvknowitall.com, and we're going to go to the racing drones section. People ask, how often do you update this website? This page, I actually updated this page 4 months ago. I did a complete rewrite of this page 4 months ago. So again, people ask, how often do you update it? I never update the whole thing. Yeah, just update it as needs to be. So that means that there's always some part of it that's wildly out of date and some part of it that's fresh. That's just how it is. Flight controllers for a 20x20. These are, if I was searching for a 20x20 flight controller, it would be one of these. And the reason I say that is these are the flight controllers that racers beat the shit out of, and the ESC still survives. And that's my number one complaint with a 20x20 is that the ESC isn't durable enough. These are the ones I would get. Is the Redux still around? It's still around. How about that? All right. Hello. Zachary Cothrell says, I'll be getting my hands on one of the CL2 4S drones from Rotor Riot. What does it mean by tuned? What it means is that Rotor Riot developed a PID tune for that build, and then they put that PID tune on the build when they ship it. It doesn't mean that they individually hand-tuned every single one of them, because they fly fairly identical if they're built the same. But it means that the Rotor Riot developed a PID tune for it, and then they put that PID tune on each of them, as opposed to shipping it with the defaults. Hi, Joshua. I have a question about Betaflight 4.5 and problems with ESCs. Do you have any input?
I queued this because I'm just going to make a guess about what he means.
Is it the D-Shot bit bang?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to assume. So just throwing it out there, If you have a problem by flashing to 4.5 and your ESCs don't work, your motors don't spin, you could try two things. One is if your ESC supports bidirectional D-shot, you should just try enabling that, because on a lot of these builds, it just works. If you enable that, you don't have to worry about anything. If for some reason you're not using bidirectional D-shot, which you should, or you just want to make sure they spin, then what you would want to do instead is go into the CLI and type set space D-shot underscore bitbang equals off, and then save. And that's a weird thing that got changed, or changed function between 4.4 and 4.5, so a lot of boards need it disabled to be able to use motors with bidirectional D-shot off. I think some need it with it on too, and there's some weird communication stuff there, but just so you know, that's the general idea there.
I always tell people, if your motors don't spin, try typing set D-shot bitbang equals off and save. And if they still don't spin, try turning it on. Maybe I don't know. Because some flight controllers, I think, need it to be on. I think that's pretty rare these days, but maybe. Why, Blunty, you said turn on... Does turning on bidirectional D-shot bypass this? You said turn...
for some reason, on many of these builds, I'm not going to say all, I'm going to say 80 to 90% of the situations, if you just enable bidirectional D-shot, it works fine. And I believe that's because it handles each of the motor assignments either into DMA or timers differently. And so, like, you're not... Like, the whole point of bitbang, my understanding of the point of bitbang is you're making a software way to have an extra hardware channel for the motors to go down.
Yep.
And when you do bidirectional D-shot, for some reason, it splits them out anyway in a different way and doesn't require you to bitbang them.
Interesting. So everybody who's asking me this question has not enabled bidirectional D-shot, or it would be working?
80 to 90% of the people that ask me this have not enabled it, and just enabling it fixes it, and there's no problem. That's been my experience. I feel like 10 to 20% of them seem like they still enable it, doesn't work. Sometimes they turn it off and it works, and it doesn't, and that sort of thing.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's good to know. I'll add that to my workflow. So if you flash to Betaflight 4.5 and your motors won't spin, here is the workflow. Number 1, enable bidirectional D-shot if you haven't already. Assuming your ESC supports it, which it really should. But if you have a BL Heli S ESC, you will need to have flashed BlueJay to the ESC to get bidirectional support. Okay, so if that either you enabled bidirectional and it didn't work, or you haven't enabled bidirectional because your ESC doesn't support it and you're just going to live with that. Then go to the CLI, type set D-shot bitbang equals off, on, off, and save. And then if that doesn't work, try turning it on. And a lot of times it works.
It should be typically set to auto, and for some reason the behavior has changed, and now auto is turning it on, and we don't want it on, we want it off because it's not assigning them properly with it on.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, no, D-shot bitbang was invented back when D-shot was just barely becoming a thing, and some flight controllers, like, I don't know if it was the DMA channels or something, but they didn't have enough resources. I think it was DMA channels to do D-shot. And D-shot bitbang was a way of, like, forcing, making it work on flight controllers that didn't have the hardware resources to do it. And now we shouldn't have to bitbang because all of them are made to do it. Just Mo asks, I began looking for DJI goggles. Is there a difference in range of penetration and other performance when it comes to the Integra versus the Goggles 2? I don't think so, no. Same antennas. The Goggles 2 have removable antennas, so in theory and in practice, you can add external antennas to the Goggles 2, high-gain antennas. Some people do that. Other people don't think it's worth the trouble. The Integra has a permanently attached antennas, and you can't really do external without opening the goggles up, which most people don't want to do. But the base range should be the same between them. Does the Walksnail FPV image quality improve when paired with Walksnail goggles versus the VRX with the O4X Pros? What's the resolution? The O4X Pro has plenty of resolution, doesn't it? What's the resolution on the O4X Pro? Let's double check. 1920 by 1080. I think the Goggles X are 1920 by 1080. There you go. So you're not losing anything in terms of image quality. It's the same resolution. It's close to the same FOV. No, I don't think there's any degradation in image quality. There's a change in latency because you're going through the HDMI input. But no, I always think the image quality would be the same.
And I always forget, does the VRX do 100 FPS over the HDMI?
Yes.
Okay.
Because you can turn on high frame rate, and then if you've plugged it into a television or a normal display, it outputs 100 FPS, and the TV won't display the signal. And that's where you hold down the back button for like 3 seconds to reset it to 720p 60, so you can get your video feedback. Now, I don't know if the O4X Pros will input 100 FPS.
They do. 720p 100, they do support.
Okay. Yeah. So you're getting a small increase in latency by going through the HDMI input, but other than that, I think your experience is very comparable. So, and I'm not sure I would buy the Dominator. In your situation, I don't know if I would buy the Dominator HDs. I'm not sure that's worth like $350, $380, whatever they're selling for now. The thing is, if you really cared about latency, you probably wouldn't be flying Walksnail anyway. Right? No, okay, that's a cheap shot. You could also argue that, well, hey, if Walksnail is going to be 25 to 35 milliseconds latency, then I need all the help I can get. And that extra 16 milliseconds, or I don't know if the exact number, but I would estimate it at probably roughly 16 milliseconds, because most HDMI inputs you'll have 1 frame of delay, and it's 60 frames per second. Well, I guess it's 100 frames per second. It's a little less than 16 milliseconds, but it's like 10 milliseconds. But that extra 10 milliseconds of delay, maybe it really matters to you. You'd rather be at 35 than 45. And so you would get back that delay by switching to the Dominator goggles. But everything else in terms of image quality is going to be about the same. How many farads capacitor do you recommend for a 45 millimeter whoop? None. I don't know of any situations where people are needing to put external capacitors on tiny whoops. 65, 75, 85 millimeter. If Siadi's in the chat, he can speak up. He does a lot more micro stuff than I do. But personally, I wouldn't add an external capacitor. There should be enough capacitors on the board, and you should be good to go. Are you going to participate in the freestyle boot camp? Where is it? Introduction Freestyle Bootcamp 101 from Tyrant. When does it start? Has it already started? 2 days. I would like to participate. The chances of me doing all 10 weeks without getting distracted with something else and going, okay, I'm going to go do something else with my life, are low. I will probably make some videos about weeks, the early weeks, and then get busy with something and drop out. But you never know. I think it sounds really fun. I'm always looking for something to give me a little kick in the butt and say, get your ass out there and go do some freestyle. And, you know, who knows? Maybe I'll just embarrass myself with my inability to do some tricks that other people find simple. I definitely have some gaps in my freestyle skills. Like there's places where I'm very comfortable and feel very confident, and then there are some tricks that you'll be like, what do you mean you don't know how to do that trick? You're a great pilot. Okay, maybe I just say that in my head. I'm a great pilot. I'm a great pilot. It's okay that I can't trippy spin in real life. I'm a great pilot. So which should be interesting. We've put the word out. I've mentioned it on Livestream. Now I'm mentioning it again. Tyrant FPV's ProWhooper.com Freestyle Bootcamp. $4,750 prize pool. I've put the word out. We mentioned it on the news. I think this kind of thing is fantastic. I did Race Gal for like 4 weeks, I think, and had a fantastic time doing it. Just got really busy and ended up not being able to keep participating. So I'm looking forward to it. Wyatt asks, I recently bought the Whoopfly 1.6 RTF kit. Was wondering if it'd be worth it to buy circular dipole antennas and replace the antennas on the quad and the goggles. You can. Whoopfly 1.6. I gotta look this up. The Whoopfly 1.6, that's from sub 250. You can. It's not always beneficial. On a quad like this, sometimes the extra weight of the circular polarized antenna is enough to make it fly noticeably worse. And sometimes you don't get really significantly increased range. These little wire antennas can be fairly decent. It's possible you would get better performance, but it's not guaranteed. What I would actually recommend is get a higher gain patch antenna. Like, buy something like this, the Menace linear patch. This is a linear polarized patch antenna. I think it's like 5 dB of gain, 6.5 dB. And this is going to give you maybe 50% more range than the antennas that are on there now. So I would go something like that. But I would probably leave the antenna on the drone alone. My motors are causing vibrations because I stripped some screws on all of them. Should I replace them? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Or you should find some way to screw them down. But yeah, no, your motors have to be screwed down. Is the boot camp a free event? I don't see a fee structure or registration fee. I believe it is free. They're just giving away prizes. Congratulations. Anyone know how to put more stats on screen in the goggles Integra when flying with the O3 Air unit? I have it on a tiny whoop, but it doesn't show in-flight stats besides voltage, and end stats doesn't show anything either. I'm gonna guess that you have the high definition setting set wrong. So in the Integra, go to the display menu and find the OSD canvas size, and you'll have the choice of normal or HD. Set it to HD. I think what's happening is the goggles are looking for a standard definition OSD, and the flight controller is sending a high definition OSD, and all that data is off the bottom of the screen where you can't see it. But by changing the Integra to high definition, that'll fix that. Here's a question from Pink Whooper. A lot of HD0 reviews price the goggles at $495. Do you think they're still worth it at over $800 after shipping? Analog module, analog VRX. For someone who wants to use an analog and a digital system. Goggles $600, shipping $40, adapter module $50, VRX $130. Are they worth it? I can't answer the question, are they worth it? Because I don't have your budget and I don't have your priorities, okay? Like, there are a few things in the world where you can look at something else that exists and say, this thing is overpriced because this other thing that exists is just as good for less money, right? That's not the case with FPV goggles. Like, for example, if you fly HD0 as your primary or as if you fly, maybe not primarily, but significantly HD0, you should have the HD0 goggles, no question. The HD0 goggles are hands down the best, the definitive way to experience the HD0 system. So, if you have a whole bunch of quads and one HD0 quad that you just wanted to try out for fun, yeah, okay, get the standalone receiver or something. Don't spend $600 on the goggles, $500, whatever they are. But if primarily HD0, you should own the goggles. At which point, how much do they cost? Doesn't matter. Nothing else does what they do. I mean, eventually they cost so much money that you're like, I can't afford it. I have to do something else. But $500, $600, whatever, $500 for a set of FPV goggles, that's right in line with other stuff that you might buy. That's not the cheapest thing you can get, but it's pretty standard for a set of FPV goggles. So, so then, like, okay, so let's assume that you fly HD0. That's your main FPV system. Now, doesn't matter. You're going to spend $500, whatever, $600 on the goggles. You just are. If you didn't want to spend $600 on the HD0 goggles, shouldn't have bought a bunch of HD0 video transmitters. That's my opinion. Okay, so now you're committed. $600 for the HD0 goggles. Now, how much is the analog? Oh, actually, it's not that expensive. Because you're going to get an adapter module and a VRX for less than $200. What else are you going to get for $200? You're not going to get a set of analog goggles for $200. Not one that's as good as the HD0 goggles. So, from that perspective, you're saving money. Right? That's one way to look at it. That's how I would look at it. That's how I would look at it. Let's see here. Mike Pistolesi. JB, I have to disagree with you. I use a plastic battery strap on a cheap battery pad because I want my batteries to eject when I crash. I don't want my battery catching on fire taking out my drone again. Are you trolling? Or are you serious? I have crashed thousands of times. Maybe more. But certainly the number of times I've crashed an FPV drone is in the single-digit thousands. And the vast majority of those, I flipped the quad over with turtle mode, I armed the quad, and I took right back off again. That's why you don't want your battery ejecting. Some of those crashes, I could have walked over and picked up the drone, but I'm a lazy SOB, and I don't want to. Some of those crashes, there was no way to retrieve the drone. If the battery had ejected, I would have lost the drone forever. If the battery ejects in a crash, your chances of getting the drone back go way down. Your chances of just flying happily along and you smack a tree branch and the quad goes beep, 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 and you can keep flying. Oops, except you ejected the battery, quad fell out of the air. Having your battery disconnect from the aircraft when you impact something causes way more problems than it solves. And it sounds like once upon a time, you crashed, your battery lit on fire, and burned up your drone. And you think that if your battery had ejected, the battery still would have lit on fire, but your drone would have been safe. Maybe that's true. That's like people I used to know 20 years ago. I used to know a guy who didn't wear his seatbelt when he drove. And like, I want to say, if you like want to die in a car crash and you feel like you don't want to wear your seatbelt, I respect your right to make that decision for yourself. I think it's a dumb decision, but you know, that's your personal whatever. More power to you. As long as you're in the car by yourself. If you're in the car with me, you know, they say an unbuckled passenger becomes a projectile in an accident. I would prefer you have your seatbelt on if we're driving together, so that if we get in an accident, you don't fly over and hit me. But that's not my point. My point is, this guy's argument was that once upon a time, he was in a car accident, and he saw the accident about to happen. He was about to get T-boned on the driver's side. And he leapt out of the driver's seat because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. He leapt out of the driver's seat and slid over out of the driver's seat into the passenger seat. Bam! The car got plowed. And he said, if I'd have been buckled in, I wouldn't be here right now talking to you. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. But that doesn't mean that in the larger, grander scheme of things, it was safer or rational or correct for him to go around without a seatbelt. He got lucky one time. There was this weird outlier circumstance where not wearing his seatbelt turned out to work for him. It doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. And it's the same thing for you. You have this weird outlier circumstance where the fact that your battery was secure didn't work for you. But that doesn't mean you should conclude that the right thing to do is to have your battery go flying off all the frickin' time. It's going to create way more problems than it solves. Do not do that. You will destroy so many batteries. And when they go flying off, they get chopped by the props. Yeah, no. You're wrong. You're wrong. You're so wrong that I almost think you're trolling. But just in case you're not trolling, I want to tell you, you're wrong. You're making the wrong decision. Don't do this. Okay? Crux 35 V2 motor upgrade. Any thoughts? Let's go to my website, fpvknowitall.com. fpvknowitall.com. There is a sub 250 gram page. And we go to the motors section. These are great motors for the 3.5 inch sub 250 category. Not these. Not these. These. Oh, hell yeah. These are the motors you want. These are the ones you want. Especially the Exnova 1804 is a real freaking beast. About the only thing you might complain about is it doesn't do T-mount shaft, which some people might not like. But there you go. What battery do you recommend for a 7-inch long-range 6S 2806.5 1300 kV motors? If you're going long-range, please consider like 1100 kV motors. 1300 is okay. 1100 will be slightly better. You'll get less power, but for a long range, you want that efficiency. For long-range batteries, if you really want like a very, very good battery, we're going to go to, you've been seeing them on my channel a lot lately, Upgrade Energy. And you're going to either get one of the green cells if you're pulling very few amps, don't get what the Amprius cells are preposterously expensive. Don't get them. Let's see if we turn this down a little. We get rid of the Amprius. There we go. I'm going to look at something like a 8,000 milliamp hour 6S. Yeah, this is a great choice. Now, it's a $200 battery. It's a great choice, though. 8,000 milliamp hour, 400 watts. It's rated for 25 amps continuous. If that 25 amps continuous is not enough for you, and it may not be, then you go to the red cells. And let's see, we should be able to find a similar one under the red cells. Filter by cells in series. 6, filter by cells in parallel. 6S2P. Here's a 9,000 milliamp hour. I think that's going to be a 6S2P. Yeah. $219 rated for 55 amps. That'll work for you. If that's too much money, and you know, of course, those are high-end premium packs. 6S2P, please. How much is the iFlight one? The iFlight one isn't that much cheaper. $150 for the iFlight 6S8000. What cells does it use? Samsung. I don't think that. Samsung 40T. It's an okay cell. I don't know if it's as good as the ones. Yeah. So that's save you about $70, but I honestly think the upgrade energies are better packs. Anyway. Mupshot says I need an affiliate link on Upgrade Energy. I don't know if Upgrade Energy has an affiliate program. I'll have to ask him about that. I'll tell you guys. So you guys are going to see some content. This is the perks of watching the live stream. I haven't really talked about this. You guys are going to see some content from me and Upgrade Energy in the future. I actually had a really long conversation with the owner of Upgrade Energy. His name is Matthew Barnard. And I can't wait to do some interview with him where he talks about battery design, talks about he is an enormous battery nerd. And I say that in the most complimentary way possible. This guy loves batteries like we love FPV drones, if you can believe that. And right now they are in the process of moving into a new facility, and they're going to be moved into that facility in 2 months or so. And I was like, well, how about when you're moved into your new facility, I'll come out there and we'll do an interview and we'll make some content. Maybe I'll get to make another battery. I got to make this battery. I talked about it on stream yesterday. But I walked away from that conversation with a massive amount of respect for his batteries. And I know there's people who look at the price of the batteries and they go, well, I could just build that. Yeah, you could. Go for it. But I have to tell you, there's 7 different things he does when he makes those batteries that nobody else is doing, that he came up with as optimizations for how to make the batteries better. I'm tempted to tell you one of them. Okay, I'm going to tell you one. Some of them were proprietary, and I think he would rather I didn't talk about them on stream. But I'm going to tell you one of them because maybe I shouldn't. Well, all right, I'm not going to tease you. So typically when you make an 18650 battery, you use nickel strips, and you spot weld nickel strips on top of the battery. Nickel has about 4 times the resistance of copper. Okay? So why don't you just use copper strips? Well, copper strips are very, very difficult to spot weld. If you're making 1 pack in your basement and you're just very, very careful with the spot welder, you might be able to make it work. But if you're making hundreds of batteries, to be able to reliably spot weld copper at mass production is very, very difficult. And so nobody does it. But he has a $50,000 laser, an industrial laser. And he figured out how to use this laser to spot weld the copper so that his batteries can have copper strips instead of nickel strips. And that means they have significantly less resistance, they have better current flow, less heat buildup, yada, yada, yada. And so when you say, why does an Upgrade Energy battery cost so much more? Well, part of the reason is that he bought a $50,000 laser to spot weld them with. Because he wanted to be able to make the batteries. And how much better does that make the battery? Is it 5% better? I don't know. A lot of people wouldn't give a shit. They'd be just like, no, I want to save $50. But he's the kind of guy who will make a battery that costs 25% more and performs 20% better or 15% better just because he can, because he's a giant nerd. Okay. Anyway. There you go. Let's see here. How are we doing for super chats? We got more super chats? Impulse RC driver fixer worked great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael Rachka. Glad we could help you. Devin Felix, how do I save an OSD profile so I don't have to configure each one every time I build a new drone? What a great question. Let me show you how to do that. I felt safe telling you guys that because, number one, you could just open up one of his batteries and like figure out that he's not using nickel strips if you wanted to take it apart. But number two, you can't really steal that idea from him. Like, you could make one battery at home with copper strips, and you could very carefully spot weld it, and if you were just persistent, eventually you would get it to work. But, like, you need lasers to do it at scale. And a lot of people don't have lasers. Okay. But I wanted to tell you because it gives you something concrete that lets you know that Upgrade Energy isn't just ripping you off by charging you too much money for batteries. They're doing shit to make these batteries perform better that, as far as I know, nobody else is doing. And that's just one of the things he told me he's doing. And I'm not going to tell you any of the others because I feel like that would be rude. This guy's a freaking battery genius. Anyway. I guess I'm a little fanboy-y. My Stream Deck just rebooted. Can we? There we go. How do you do the OSD profile? What you do is you're going to go to the CLI. You're going to type dump all. DUMP space ALL. What the fuck is going on in the chat? Jesus Christ. Oh, great. Thank you, Blunty. Oh, perfect. Blunty, you're the man. You're on top of it. So we dump all. Then what we're going to do, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see better. We're going to scroll up, and we're going to look for the line starting with set OSD. Here we go. Set OSD. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to grab all of those lines. Okay? Here we go. Oh, that was too far. Hold on. By the way, you can just dump this all to a text file and edit the text file if you want. Set OSD. All of the lines starting with set OSD, and we're going to right-click and copy, and we're going to save that to a text file. There you go. That's your full OSD setup. Just like that. It's that simple. So that doesn't fix your... You might also need the VCD video system as well, but that's like that's going to be in your preset when you set up the VTX, so you're going to be fine there. Okay. Cloudhopper says, I've been a Patreon member for a while, but I've never sent you a super chat. Thank you for all you do. Well, thank you for the super chat. Eagle Eye Shooting says, any behind tests with Rotor Riot's new Brave FC? Thanks for years of teaching. No, I don't have the Rotor Riot Brave FC yet. Maybe I'll get one. I know they would send me one if I asked. At the same time, when it came out, I thought maybe I don't want to just immediately review it just because they're my friends, and you know, then everybody will be like, oh yeah, of course Bardwell loved it. Let's look at the Rotor Riot Brave FC. To be honest with you, I probably don't need to see it to own it in order to decide how I feel about it. Right? What do you need to know about a flight controller? Right? The pad layout. What more do you need? I don't need anything. I can form an opinion based on very little. It's one of my most endearing traits. All right, well, it's got the Rotor Riot logo on it, so it's shit. I I like that the bootloader button is right next to the USB port and is easily accessible from the outside of the quad. This is a very simple thing. Some flight controller, not many, but some flight controller manufacturers will put the bootloader button like here. And it's like, how am I supposed to get at that without opening up my quad? It's annoying. I also like that they're using a full physical button and not the little gold foil button. That's going to be more durable. It's a small thing, but I think it matters to me. I appreciate it. Okay, we got plugs. I don't really care about the plugs. Here's why I don't care about the plugs. It's not what you think. Some people say, I don't like plugs because plugs come unplugged in flight. Solder never comes unplugged. I've never had a plug come unplugged in flight. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I've never had it happen. You stick that JST plug in there, it's not coming out. You're good. I mean, solder can break off too, right? Theoretically. Plugs are a little bit annoying. The reason plugs are annoying is that they don't actually save you time. What do you mean? You don't have to solder. That's not true. Here's my receiver. It has no wires coming out of it. Here's my flight controller. If that flight controller comes with a bunch of pre-made headers, I could solder that wire onto the receiver, and then I plug it into the flight controller. Oh, I did. I saved myself some solder joints. Okay. Instead of doing 8 solder joints, I did 4. Fair. But then you got a lot of other peripherals, like the camera and the video transmitter, that come with wires and plugs. So now what I have to do is I have to plug the plug into the camera, and I have to splice those wires to the plug that goes into the flight controller. Well, I could have just soldered it to the flight controller in the same amount of time. And wire splices are ugly. So for basically anything except the receiver, these plugs don't really save you a lot. Now, if I... Sorry about that. Why? Stop that. Stop doing that. Stop doing that. If I was able to buy peripherals with plug headers pre-made, this would save a ton of time. Because you just plug them in and you're good to go. But I find that in the time it would take me to make a plug, I would almost always rather just solder it to the flight controller and get on with my life. That's my opinion. So the plugs, but hey, they're there if you like them. I really dig that every plug also has solder pads. So like, if you like plugs, good. If you don't like plugs, that's fine too. You got your choice. That's very nice. Flipping the board over. What do we got? Hello. Open image in new tab. What do we got? This is the GPS header. I know that because it's got SCL SDA. Got a UART there and a 5-volt pad. Got 2 5-volt pads. That's kind of weird. Extra 5-volt pad, I guess. Oh, I hope that 5-volt pad is powered from USB. It would be really good if it was, because the GPS can be powered from USB. Pause for a second. Cuneiform ain't shit. Linear B be the best. Thank you for a $50 super chat from Linear B. Thank you, Linear B, for that very generous super chat. Getting back to the topic here. E5 and E6, those are going to be motor outputs. We got up to 6 motor outputs. Asian father says, why not 8? It's a meme. Kind of weird that there are 6 but not 8. It's nice to have 2 extras. Not many people building hexacopters these days, though. UART. What's going on here? R6. Where's T6? Where's T6? Why do I have an R6 but not a T6? Oh, I am angry. I want the full UART. UART 4, 10-volt output. Great. That's going to be for the video transmitter, presumably. Oh, no. Here's VO for the video out. That's going to be for the video transmitter. 10-volt ground. What's this one? Oh, that's going to be for the DJI. Got it. That's for DJI. That's why there's R6. That's for the S-Bus input, and that's your digital video transmitter. Video input from the camera. Camera control, good. Some kind of a solder bridge here, presumably for the voltage regulator, I guess. It would be nice if it was labeled. I'm sure it's in the manual. And here's your ESC plug. So, fairly standard stuff there. Yeah, fairly standard stuff. Price. I like the price. $50. That's a good price. That's about Speedy BF 405. What are we at? $60. $60. Oh, I'm sorry. Ha! No, my bad. That's for the flight controller and the ESC. Never mind. That's still like a good price these days for a flight controller, but no. No. It's not really competitive. But hang on a second. Made in the USA. It was made in the USA. How much are you willing to pay for that? I don't know. Maybe nothing. Go support China. You unpatriotic traitor. Go send your money to a foreign country. Some people would say. Some people value that a lot. Not a lot of FPV hobbyists. I was talking to a guy, not a guy you've ever heard of. This was a guy who had some entrepreneurial money, and he thought that starting up non-China manufacturing of FPV drones was a way to use that money to make more money. And I said to him, this was just a random phone. People could just like, hey, can I buy an hour of your time and talk to you on the phone about my ideas? And I'm like, yeah, okay. I mean, sure. And he wanted like just business consulting. And I said, so like, you're going to sell to the military and the government, right? Because when someone says made in the USA, like, I was like, hobbyists don't care. They're not going to pay extra for made in the USA. They're going to buy the cheapest thing. I've been in this hobby there's one constant that has remained true in this hobby as long as I've been in it, and that is that people will buy the cheapest effing thing they can. And anytime you charge them 1% more for a 5% more quality, they will resent you for it, and you will go out of business because no one will buy your shit. And he was like, no, I want to sell to hobbyists. I was like, good luck. Made in the USA. That's kind of cool. There you go. STM F7. That's good. That SpeedyB is only an F4. BMI 270 gyro, sure. BMP 390 black barometer, sure. OSD, sure. Ooh, it's got the AT chip for the OSD. That's interesting. Yeah. So, it's a fine flight controller. It's not a remarkable flight controller in terms of like does it have like 18 UARTs? I mean, if you compare it, Maytech H743 Slim, not made in the USA. Have to say. This frickin' flight controller has everything in the kitchen sink. It's like 12 motor outputs. It's got 2 separate I2C buses. It's got so much stuff. It's got a camera switcher. This is what I call a kitchen sink flight controller. Just everything. And the kitchen sink. Got an SD card for black box logging. It's not cheap. When I compare something like the Rotor flight controller, yeah, it's gets the job done. It's got enough UARTs. It's got a barometer. It's got everything you want. Got a fair price, $50. Maybe you like it. Let's see. Oh, it had to happen. It had to happen. Are the components sourced from the USA? No, clearly not. That's not possible. Clearly not. It's not possible. The components aren't made in the USA. But like the BMI 270 gyros from Bosch, that's made in Germany. Like I saw a Facebook comment, and somebody broke down all of the stuff that was on this, and like many of the chips are not made in China. They're made in Europe. They're made in other places, if that matters to you. But it's just not possible. It's not possible to build a flight controller with only USMA stuff, certainly not at a price that anyone would tolerate. You can say assembled in the USA, but that's just the standard for made in the USA. No one is being dishonest by saying made in the USA. This is assembled in the USA, made in the USA. That's what it means. If you're going to draw the line at things that were only sourced 100% from the USA, there's not going to be very many products that fit that. So,
can you fix the YouTube chat?
Oh, what have I done? What's going on with the YouTube chat?
You just fixed it by clicking in and doing whatever you did.
Oh, I scrolled back to look at previous comments. I should do that in the social stream, I guess. Sorry about that, Plenty. All right. Are there any 100% U.S. sourced, made, and assembled products in FPV? I doubt it. Like maybe a frame. I would guess that there's a USA source for carbon fiber sheet, and then you just mill it on a CNC mill. That's about it. It's just the manufacturing capacities are not there. They just are not there. Like, I don't know what you want. Alrighty. Alrighty. Fly high. Rotor Riot doesn't have any bombs. You think they got bombs in Orlando? Rotor Riot makes drones. They make a drone. They sell the drone to a person. That person does something with the drone. Rotor Riot. That the sentence doesn't even parse.
I think people are upset because Rotor Riot just posted a video that is quite inflammatory to the situation.
What? Shut up. Rotor Riot, what did they do? Rotor Riot, what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, I remember this. This is Eric Sackler's place where he has, I was there. I shot the gun that set this off on the first time. This is, Boom Boom Drone. Yeah, Boom Boom Drone. I actually took the shot that set off this Tannerite, for this one. This was a hoot and a holler. This was a lot of fun. So this explosive is a thing called Tannerite. And basically what you do is you just take like, a pound of Tannerite or whatever, and you put it somewhere safe, and then you shoot it with like a high velocity, like a 22 round is perfect. And it goes boom. And there's videos on the internet of people doing real dumb shit. Like if you put a bunch of Tannerite in a washing machine, it will send chunks of washing machine right into your face. So don't do that. This was so fun. It has nothing to do with like military whatever. It's just good old boys out in the country making things go boom for fun. Oh man, I was so like, this was not a hard shot. it's not very far, and it was a scope, and the scope was well sighted. But like I was like, if I screw up and miss, I'm gonna feel like such a chump. So thankfully I didn't. So they just did it again without me. But the drone didn't go boom. The Tannerite went boom. I mean, I guess the video was popular, so they're revisiting it. Did they just do it all again? Hey, there's Jeff. What's up, Jeff? Ooh, there's Corey taking the shot. I guess I can play some. Oh, there's music. That's probably not licensed music. Come on, Corey. Don't screw it up. Yeah, buddy! All right. I can see the optics. Maybe not the best. I don't know. That has nothing to do with anything that anyone's concerned with. I can see the optics are not like the best, but I don't even think that's an issue. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Moving on. $10 super chat from Gunkleberry says, I just got around to enabling crash mode based on one of your past videos. Wow, it's a game changer for whooping indoors. Thanks for all the tips. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I'm glad that it's working out for you. Made that video a little while back. Spider Sugar says, what's the best Rotor Riot bind and fly I can buy for my paramilitary group? Durability is not an issue. Probably the tank. Oh, durability not an issue. You're doing one way. Probably the cheapest one then, the CL1. Like if you're gonna do durability, when you say durability not an issue, I assume that means you're gonna do a one-way drone where you don't care about crashing it because you're only gonna crash it once, if you know what I mean. And so I would get the cheapest one possible because you're probably mostly concerned with volume at that point. Like you just want to have as many as you can to send as quickly as you can, and so just get the least expensive one. I know you're joking. You know I'm joking. I don't think that you have a paramilitary group, and I don't think that you're actually asking that. I think you're being sarcastic, and I want to make it clear to anybody who's watching that I'm not interested in giving anybody instructions on how their paramilitary group can use drones. My actual answer would be not interested. I assume you work for the FBI. And you're just trying to like sting me. But haha, funny super chat. Now we both had a laugh. Skydozer says, is this unironic? My favorite kind of joke is the one where you can't tell if I'm joking or not. Yes, I was joking. I was trolling. He left a trolling super chat and I gave a trolling answer. Now we have trolled each other and the circle is complete. Do you think there's an age limit for the drone FPV hobby? Thank you for $10, Sylvan Stop Point. In terms of how old you can be, I mean, I think one of the greatest things about FPV is that old, slow, fat, out of shape, disabled people can all enjoy FPV and can get a sense of freedom, of motion, of exploration that perhaps their old, fat, disabled, out of shape body doesn't give them anymore. I speak for myself as well as many others out there who maybe might not like to hear themselves described that way. Although the older you are, the less you give a shit about being called all those other things. In my experience, I think it's wonderful. I think one of the most iconic, not the right word, one of the most ideal like picture of FPV is a person who maybe was injured and lost mobility. Maybe they're in a wheelchair and they get some of that sense of mobility that they lost back by being able to fly FPV drones. I used to ride dirt bikes and skateboards. Then one day I had an accident. Now I'm in a wheelchair. I can't skateboard anymore. I can't dirt bike. But I put the FPV goggles on and I can fly and I can move and I can have speed and motion in a way that I can't anymore. That's a real story. Like, that more than one person has told me that story. You know, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. So there's not an age, like eventually you'll get to a point maybe where you don't feel like you can do it safely anymore. Like maybe, like I know that people develop tremors as they age. A lot of them do. And there may come a point where you feel like your physical dexterity is not sufficient that you could safely fly, you know, but like, I don't think there's a hard age limit. And likewise, if you're talking about young, that depends heavily on the maturity of the child and the decision making of the child. I've known people who had 5-year-olds who could fly airplanes and make correct decisions about safety while flying the RC plane or the RC multirotor. And then there's some 5-year-olds who like, no freaking way would I hand them the controller. There's some 25-year-olds who no freaking way do I think they should have the controller, but that's a topic for another day, man. I'm trying to learn how to tune my quad. I would prefer to go off a preset. Is there a way I can do that, or do I have to learn how to tune from scratch? Thank you for a $5 super chat, Donnie Lama. The first thing I would have you do is just fly the defaults and see, do you like the defaults? Do they feel pretty good to you? Don't forget that. The defaults work really well for a lot of people. The second thing I would have you do is go to the Betaflight presets tab and load up the UAV tech preset for whatever size drone you've got and see if that's better. Be aware that that preset is too aggressive for some builds, and you may find that the quadcopter has some problems and you'll go back to the default. By the way, before you apply any preset, save your CLI dump, because there's no undo button for the presets. The only way to undo the preset is to reload an old CLI dump. Okay? And sometimes those there are a couple other presets. I think there's a Sugar K preset. There's a UAV Tech preset. There are different PID presets for 5 inches or whatever you've got, and you could try loading them. At the end of the day, you're either gonna, if those don't work for you, you're gonna have to learn to PID tune from scratch, or maybe just fly the defaults. The days when PID tuning was mandatory to have a good time flying a quad are long gone. The defaults are very, very good, and frankly, on a lot of quads that I build, if it's not like gonna be one of my like stable quads, like daily driver, if you will. Oh, there we go. I often just fly them on the defaults and don't even freaking worry about it. But then again, I'm not that great of a pilot, so maybe that's not the best way. Relaxation by the Shore, thank you for a $10 super chat. So if you buy the O3 camera with DJI Integra goggles and build an FPV drone, does that comply with remote ID? No. You will need to put a remote ID module onto the drone. The Phoenix MRID is a good one. The Flight Test Easy ID is another good one. You must put, if you want to comply with remote ID, that's what you have to do. Mohammed Arbab, thank you for 12 euros. I don't see any question from you, Mohammed, so I'm going to just say thank you for the donation. Oliver, thank you for 10 pounds. Why do we have to choose digital FPV channels when we haven't had to do that with control links for decades? Is frequency hopping not possible with FPV video? Oliver, the short answer is that control links are much lower data rate. A control link might be 500 kilobits per second. A video link might be 50 megabits per second. And the short answer is that when you need to transmit 50 megabits per second or 25 megabits per second, just hopping all over the band and hoping you don't interfere doesn't work as well. Okay? The digital video transmitters do use a form of spread spectrum. It's not frequency hopping spread spectrum, and that's why you need to pick the channel. That's the answer. Tech Johnny, Tishani, Thank you for 5 Swiss francs. I just successfully rebuilt my OS 3.5 after my Mamba ESC died and killed a motor last Friday. For 1 second, I was reading that sentence, and I thought you said, I rebuilt my quad after my mama died, and I was about to be very sad for you and also kind of weirded out. My Mamba ESC died and killed a motor last Friday. Thank you for your involuntary emotional support stream. My pleasure. Thank you for your donation. Okay. Let's see here. Will 2306 1750 kV work well with 6S 6-inch? Yes. You would do a little better to have a slightly larger motor like 2407 or 2208 or maybe like a 2506. Okay? Just slightly bigger than 2306, okay? I sound like Mr. Mackey from, okay? I'm going to need to get a bigger motor, okay? Yeah, 2306 not big enough, okay? But 2306 1750 kV is fine, and 1750 is not too high of a kV, so that's going to be okay on 6S 6-inch. What do you think about the HD kit UAV Futures put together last week? Walksnail Goggles L, Mobula 8, Walksnail version, and Radiomaster Pocket. Fantastic. No complaints whatsoever. Solid.
My only caveat to that is I would let the L live in the world for like a month or two longer and make sure there's no critical issues and there's no V2 of the L that pops up.
Yeah, that's fair. Walksnail, oftentimes, maybe that's even too strong of a word. Any new product, it's a good idea to see if there's like, have they even delivered any to customers yet? Or is it still like pre-order? Does anybody have the Goggles L other than reviewers? I don't know. Yeah, so maybe don't buy them right now because you're going to be one of the first testers. And like, remember the Goggles X came out and some of them were overheating? And like people had to get, some of them were fine, but some of them were overheating. Well, maybe the Goggles L has some problem. I don't know. So maybe wait a little while. But like, I can't complain. Walksnail Goggles L is a $200 digital goggle. Walksnail is a fine digital video system. Radiomaster Pocket is a solid radio. A little small, but like, $60. And then you just need a quadcopter to go with it. Mobula 8 Walksnail version is, happy model. Mobula 8, solid. Might I rather have the Flywoo? Can you get the Flywoo with Walksnail? I'm not actually even sure. Drones, Tiny Drone? That's a good one, but not for indoors and maybe not for a beginner. Where's the fly lens? Cinewhoop? There we go. Fly lens 75. Where's Walksnail? Walksnail 2S. Here we go. Fly lens 75 HD Walksnail. What Walks is it? The Walksnail 1S? I think it is. So, yeah, okay. So, like, I actually have been a really big fan of these. I've been testing these fly lens and really like them. I would carefully cross-shop the fly lens 75 or the fly lens 85 Walksnail version against the Happy model and pay attention to the chat to see if Ciotti is going, no, it sucks. But I would carefully cross-shop this against the Happy model because there's a chance it's going to be better. But the goggles and the controller, can't argue with that. Oh my God, we're 3 minutes to the end of the stream. Holy shit. Time certainly flies when you're having fun. Aaron Ciotti is going to be streaming at 10 o'clock. Here we go. Ciani was wrong about 75 millimeter whoops. Oh, that's going to be good. He's going to be streaming at 10 after me. There are like 30 questions that I haven't gotten to. And if I don't get to your question, please just email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com. I help everybody who emails me, almost everybody. You know who you are. I help everybody who emails me. If you didn't get your question into the chat, please don't take it personally. Just email me, jb@joshuabardwell.com, and I will try to help get your question answered. If you absolutely want to hear me answer your question live on stream, you got like super chat is just the way to do that. Sorry, that's just how it works. Way back in the day when I only had 5 people watching my stream, it was more like a conversation. Those days are gone. We actually have a couple more super chats I got to get out of the way. Spider Sugar says, I joke and I jab, and you prove that you are the good person I know you are. Respect, homie. Cheers. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I mean, I don't know. Like, I hate to let you down. I'll say this. As a publicly known resource on FPV, I sometimes get messages from people asking me to teach them how to do things. And I think, I don't like the vibe of this one. And I'm like, no, I'm not, it's not worth it. Like, I don't know who you are. So, if someone said, hi, I'm with a paramilitary, I'd be like, no, I'm not touching that. But I don't know. Mostly because, like, you know, like, just, like, I don't know anything about the situation. Is it a terrorist? Is it an FBI sting? Is it someone whose ideology I might agree with? But, you know, you just don't know. So. I don't get a lot of those messages. I worry that people will over-extrapolate from that statement and into things. I guess what I'll say is this. You should take that statement for what it is, and I'm trying to be very careful not to over-extrapolate into topics that I've said I don't really want to get into. So, why is SkyZone's website dead? If anybody knows why SkyZone's website, every single product on SkyZone's website is marked as out of stock. And if anybody knows what happened, and it happened like all at once 3 days ago, because somebody emailed me this morning and said, I was shopping for goggles and I was about to buy goggles and I was kind of going back to SkyZone's website basically like every day, like shopping and looking at goggles. And then all of a sudden everything was out of stock. And I was like, that's interesting. And I checked and everything's out of stock, like everything. It's really weird. And if anybody knows why, feel free to reach out. Flat Rat says, I sent an email with a clip of it spinning out. Do you have any idea what it might be? Flat Rat, I answered someone's email about a quadcopter spinning out. I don't know if it was yours. Flat Rat. Yeah, I replied to you. Thank you for a $5 super chat. I will continue to reply to you in email as we were. No worries. Okay, guys. That's going to do it. We're
gone for a while.
Oh, yeah. We're going to be gone for like 3 weeks. I'm not going to say where I'm going, but Rotor Riot has me flying to this place